The Covenant. Year 37. Or 38. By then, I had stopped spending my one free day on anything that resembled hope. In the early years I had used those 24 hours the way a starving man uses a meal, desperately, gratefully trying to cram a whole life into a single afternoon. I sat in libraries. I drank in bars. Once I spent an entire free day in a grief support group in a church basement, listening to the living describe a pain I caused for a living, saying nothing, drinking the bad coffee, almost passing for one of them. By year 37, I just found a quiet place to sit, and waited for midnight to kill me. It always did, by then. The universe had developed its sense of humor and refined it into an art. A bus, a falling sign, a piece of frozen waste dropped from a passing aircraft, which I am told is more common than you'd hope. The meteorite I've mentioned. I no longer fought it. I would find a bench, watch the light go out of an ordinary sky, and wait for whatever creative little death had been picked out for me that year. It was almost restful. It was the only ending I was ever allowed, even if it lasted only until I opened my eyes again as death. But you don't want to hear about my days off. You want to hear about him. About the first one who said yes. About the covenant. I had been looking for him for a long time. I told you what I had become by year 10. A machine, and a machine that had started, very quietly, to shop. The Father had left me one door out of my sentence, and only one. Find a soul willing to take my place, knowingly and freely, 5 years of mortal life, and then this, all of this, forever. I had laughed at it once. By year 10, I had begun to hunt for it. By year 37, I had become very good at the hunting, which is to say, I had become something I am not going to ask you to forgive. I knew what I was looking for. Not a willing soul. No sane soul is willing. I was looking for a wound, a grief so large, a love so cornered, that a person might look at an eternity of hell and see in it a bargain. I watched the dying for it the way a buyer watches an auction. And in a hospital I knew well, St. Mary's, the same hospital where, an eternity ago, I had opened a golden door for a 7-year-old girl on what should have been her birthday, my very first as death. I found him. His name was Michael Reeves. 42. Pancreatic cancer, the kind that kills you in months and not years, the kind the doctors call aggressive as if there were a polite way for your own cells to murder you. He was scheduled. I felt his date the way I felt all of them, written and waiting, to die on a Tuesday at 3:47 in the afternoon, in room 506. I had been watching him for weeks, not out of mercy, out of arithmetic. He had everything I needed. He was dying anyway, so the cancer had already done the cruel work of making death familiar to him. He had 3 children, David, Emma, Lucy, whom he loved the way drowning men love air. And he had a wife. The wife was the thing that decided it, because his wife was dying too. Her name was Sarah Reeves. Lung cancer. They had tried, the two of them, to arrange the impossible, to die in the same room, or at least in rooms next to each other, so that the children would only have to keep one vigil instead of 2. But the hospital's booking system had no field for couples who wished to die together. There were forms. There were waiting lists. The bed beside Michael's went to a stranger with a broken hip. So Sarah was dying 2 doors down, in room 504, at 3:15, 32 minutes before her husband. Bureaucracy, you'll notice, remains perfectly intact, right up to and apparently past the very end. I should know. I used to run a department of it. I came for Sarah first. She went quietly. Her soul separated like silk drawn off skin, elegant even in leaving, and she saw me at once, the way they all do. "You're early," she said. "Not for you," I told her. "For you, I'm exactly on time." She looked back at her body, at the nurses who hadn't yet noticed she was gone, at the monitor still drawing the last echoes of a heart that had already stopped. "Michael," she said. It wasn't a question. Down the hall, I said. Soon. How long? 32 minutes. Can I wait? Can I see him before? That isn't how it works. It never is. I have said those words 10,000 times, and they have never once gotten easier, and I have stopped expecting them to. Please. Her soul flickered, the way they do when they're holding on by their fingernails. 43 years. We were going to do this together. I can't leave him to do it alone. You already said your goodbye, I said. This morning. You held his hand. You told him you'd see him soon. I had been there, invisible in the corner, taking notes like the buyer I was. Did you mean it? I meant it literally. I know, I said. That's why I'm telling you it's almost true. Her door was already forming beside her, lavender and cream, the soft colors of a long marriage, with a handle shaped like two wedding rings worn into each other until you couldn't say where one ended and the other began. A good door, one of the better ones I have opened. Will he be all right? She asked at the threshold. After. Will Michael be all right? I thought about lying. The living lie to the dying constantly. You look wonderful. The treatment's working. Everything will be fine. And I have told worse lies than those in my time, for worse reasons. But she had earned better, and besides, I needed her to walk through that door so I could go and do the thing I had come to do. No, I said. He won't be all right. Not for a long time. The grief will nearly finish him. I paused. But grief is only love with nowhere left to go. It doesn't kill you. It just sits where the person used to be. Eventually he'll learn to carry it. They always do. That's a kind thing to say. It isn't kindness, I said. It's only what I've seen. Sarah Reeves walked through her lavender door at 3:17 and it closed, and I stood in room 504 a moment longer than I needed to, a thing I almost never do anymore. Then I went 2 doors down to ruin her husband's eternity. He was alone. The children had gone to the cafeteria. David had insisted, the way the eldest always insist on being practical in the face of the unbearable. So it was just Michael, in room 506, awake in the grey hour, staring at the ceiling with the particular stillness of a man who has done his crying and has only the waiting left. "You're not a nurse," he said. "No." He studied me. He was not a stupid man, and dying sharpens you, strips away everything that isn't essential until you can see what is actually in the room. "I know what you are," he said. "I think I've known for a couple of days. You've been here, in the corner, watching." "Yes." He nodded slowly as if I had confirmed a diagnosis he'd already made. "Sarah. 30 minutes ago, down the hall. It was gentle. She wasn't afraid." "All true. I am, if nothing else, precise." He closed his eyes. When he opened them they were wet, but his voice held. "And now you're here for me. And here is where I should have simply done my job. Waited the 30 minutes. Opened his door. And his was a good door, too. I could already feel its shape. Michael Reeves was a good man. A better man than I had ever been, with 100 times less reason to be. I should have opened it and let him go to whatever a good man earns, and gone on to the next death, and the next, forever. Instead I said, "There's another way. For you, if you want to hear it." I want to be honest about this part, because I have been dishonest about so much, for so long, and honesty is the only coin I have left that hasn't turned to dust. I did not offer Michael the covenant out of mercy. I offered it because I was tired in a way that has no bottom, and because he was perfect, and because I had been hunting for someone exactly like him for 27 years. But I also did the one thing the man at the desk had never done. I told him the truth. All of it. I told him about the desk, and the gold, and the sin. I told him what the Father had done to me, and what I had become, and what the work was. The metronome, 2 a second, never slowing. The ghosts I had made the one time I tried to refuse this work. The dead I left where they fell when I went on strike, who haunt the world still because of me. The doors I open for saints that go down and monsters that go up, and how I am forbidden to move a single one of them. I told him about the 1 day a year, and the meteorite, and what it is to hold something real and watch it crumble to dust at midnight. I told him there is no rest, no end, no setting it down. I told him it is the loneliest thing in all creation, that it does not stop, ever, and that I would not wish it on the worst soul I had ever sent screaming through a dark door. And then I told him the terms. 5 years. 5 more years of mortal life, healthy, whole, the cancer simply gone, as though it had never come. 5 years with David and Emma and Lucy. 5 years to get them past the worst of losing their mother, to see them steadier, older, able to stand. And then, at the end of those 5 years, he would become what I am, forever. "Why are you telling me how bad it is?" he asked. "If you want me to say yes, why would you tell me all of that?" It was a good question. I am not certain even now that I have the whole answer. Because the last time I made a bargain for a soul, I said, I lied. I let people believe things that weren't true, because I wanted what they were holding, and it cost them everything and bought them nothing. It is the reason I am what I am. I looked at this dying father in his grey room. I am offering you the worst thing in the world, Michael. The least I can do is let you see exactly how bad it is before you choose it. That isn't mercy either, but it's the closest I have. He was quiet for a long time. Somewhere down the hall a machine was singing its small electronic dirge for someone who was not my responsibility this minute. The metronome ticked on behind my eyes. 2 a second. I could feel myself being needed in 1,000 places, and I stayed, because for the first time in 37 years I was about to be free, and the price of it was the man in front of me, and I owed it to him to stand still while he decided. 5 years, he said at last. 5 years. Healthy. I'd see David graduate. He starts medical school in the fall. A small broken laugh. He'd be a doctor. I'd get to see that. You would. And Emma would sing again. She stopped when Sarah got sick. She might start again if I were there. If there were something to sing for. She might. And Lucy. His voice finally cracked on the youngest, the way it always cracks on the youngest. Lucy's only 9. She can't lose us both at 9. She can't. No, I agreed. She can't. I did not push. I want that on the record, for whatever a record is worth from a creature like me. I did not have to push. I had spent 27 years learning to find the exact wound that would make a person do this, and I had found it, and it did the work for me without my lifting a finger. That is the part I will carry into whatever comes for me. Not that I pushed, but that I didn't have to. That I had become a thing that knew, precisely, which love to set in front of which dying man, so that he would damn himself and call it a gift. "Where do I sign?" Michael Reeves said. There was nothing to sign. There never is. A covenant like this one is not made of ink. It is made of a single word, spoken freely, by a soul that understands exactly what it is agreeing to. And Michael did understand. I had made certain of that. It was the one decent thing in the whole transaction. He said yes. He said it for David and Emma and Lucy, for 5 more years of being their father, against an eternity of being what I am. And the moment he said it, I felt the first loosening of a weight I had carried for 37 years. The first hint of the rest the Father had promised. After everything, the gold, the fall, the cold, the metronome, the ghosts, the meteorites, the unbearable forever. I was, finally, going to be allowed to stop. I have never felt anything so close to joy, and I have never done anything so unforgivable to feel it. Do you see it now? The shape of the whole thing, the geometry that runs through every part of me? The first time, I traded a soul's right judgment for a piece of gold, because I could not bear to be without the thing I wanted. The last time, I traded a good man's entire eternity for my own freedom, because I could not bear to keep being the thing I had become. The gold and the freedom are the same gold. Michael Reeves and a silver stapler are, God help me, the same transaction. I have only ever learned one lesson, and I have never once learned it, that there is nothing you can want badly enough to be worth what it costs someone else. The cancer left him that night, quietly, the way a tide goes out. The doctors called it a miracle and wrote papers about it. He had his 5 years. I kept my distance, mostly. I had a world of doors to open, and I did not deserve to watch him be happy. But I went to him once, near the end of the 5, and stood in his living room with whatever my face had become, and tried, too late and too uselessly, to warn him of what the words on a page could never carry. He looked at me with his hollow, knowing eyes, already half mine, already beginning to understand, and he forgave me, which was the cruelest thing he could have done. But that part is no longer my story to tell. The man who learns to die, the father who becomes the function, the new reaper born from a bargain struck in a hospital room, that is his. I passed him the burden and the key and the long unspeakable forever, and I passed him too, the telling of it. As for me, I was allowed, at last, to stop. What that means, where a thing like me goes when it is finally permitted to rest, whether it is peace or oblivion or some last judgment delayed in eternity for a creature who once sold judgment itself, I cannot tell you. I have not been yet. I am telling you all of this from the doorway, the way I have always stood in doorways, about to step through one last threshold and see, finally, what is on the other side. I sold a soul for it. I want you to remember that. Whatever mercy I am about to receive, I bought it with a grieving father, exactly the way I once bought a watch with a widow's promise. The universe has a very dark sense of humor. I have said that before. I will say it one final time, because it is the truest thing I know, and because I am at last the punchline. I spent an eternity being punished for trading a soul to get what I wanted, and I got out by trading a soul to get what I wanted. That too is a story for another time, but not mine. End of episode 5.